Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski at joybaking.com. Today we're going to make a pie crust dough. This is a really nice all-purpose dough that can be used for both sweet and savory dishes. Now I'm going to make it in a food processor. If you don't have one, you could also just do it by hand with either a pastry blender or even with your fingertips. So to start, we need 2.5 cups, that's 350 grams of white all-purpose flour. And I'm going to just put that in the bowl, the food processor. And then to that, I'm just going to add 1 tablespoon, about 15 grams of white granulated sugar. It's just a little sugar to sweeten it up. And 1 teaspoon of, I like kosher salt. And then I'm just going to process this just for like a couple seconds, just to mix it together and to give it a little aerated a bit. Okay. And then next I'm going to add 1 cup, that's about 230 grams of unsalted butter. And it has to be cold, really cold. And try to use a good quality butter because all the flavor for this dough comes from the butter. And what you need to do is, I like to cut it in small chunks because that way it blends in better. So, as I said, make sure it's really cold. You could even pop it in the freezer for 15 minutes before you make this dough to really get it cold. So I'm just going to try to evenly distribute the butter on top of the flour. This dough has a real nice buttery flavor and a crisp, flaky texture. Now you'll notice this is not, this doesn't have any shortening or lard, so it is not going to be as flaky as recipes that use the shortening. So now what I'm going to do is just pulse this for maybe 15 seconds. What I want it to look like is coarse meal. And don't worry if there's like a few clumps of butter once you finish, because that's okay. So I'm just going to pulse. Okay, I'm just going to check that. I'm just going to pulse. It's almost there, just a little bit more. Okay, that's good. I don't know if you can see that, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's all you need to do for that. And then we're going to need anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 cup, that's 60 milliliters to 120 milliliters of ice water. And what I just do is put some ice cubes in a measuring cup and fill it with water, so that way you know it's really cold. And I'm going to start with a 1/4 cup. And then I'm just going to sprinkle that over the top. You could also put it through your feed tube if you want, but I'm just going to do it this way. And then I'm just going to, again, pulse this. And you don't want it to become like a ball of dough. You just want clumps. So that's how much you got to mix it. Now I'm going to start. I'll probably have to add a little more water, but I'm just going to start with this. That's not quite enough. You know it's enough, one, because it starts to clump, and the other is because when you put it in your hand and put it between your thumb and index finger, it'll kind of stick together, and that's not quite. So what I'm going to do is just add a couple tablespoons more of water. I'm going to do just a little at a time now. Okay, so it's almost there. It's just starting to clump. So I'm just going to add about 1 more tablespoon. Okay, that's good. As you can see, it's sticking together in my hand. So that's that. Move everything aside. So what I'm going to do is just empty this right on the counter. And then I'm just going to gather it up. You can see it's now sticking together nicely. Now this will make enough for either a 2 crusted pie or 2 singles. So what I'm going to do is I'm getting a ball like that, and then I'm just going to divide it in half. If you have a scale, you could actually weigh the 2 sides, make sure that an equal amount, but I'm just going to eyeball this. You can usually tell by the weight in your hand. So that's about right. So now what I'm going to do is just wrap it in some plastic wrap. Now you'll need to chill this for about an hour before rolling out, because that will relax the gluten in the flour, and it'll also firm up the butter, and that way we'll be able to roll it out really easily. Now you could freeze this. You could wrap it up and then just put it in your freezer for a month or so. Or you could even put it in the fridge for a few days. So there you go. Just put in about a 5-inch, about 12 centimeter round, because that'll make it easier to roll it into a circle for our pie. That's one. Okay. Pop this in the fridge for about an hour, and then I'll show you how to roll it out and put it into your pie pan. Our pie dough has chilled for about an hour, and now I'm going to roll it out. As you can see, there's little specks of butter, and that's the way it should be. So don't worry if you have like little large clumps, because that'll be fine. So what you want to do is rub your countertop with some flour, because we don't want the pie dough to stick to the counter. And you also want to just put a little on top of the pie dough and also on your rolling pin. Now, if you find it won't roll easily, just let it sit on the counter, because if it's too cold, then just let it sit on your counter for about 5 minutes before trying to roll. So what you want to do is roll from the center out, and you want to keep moving the dough around so it doesn't stick to the counter. And if you have to like put more flour on the counter or your rolling pin, just do it. Move it around. And if it kind of cracks like that, just put it back together. It's still a little cold. And just keep moving it around. Try to keep it in a round shape for your pie pan. And if the ends, like the edges, if they're a little ragged, that's all right, because we're going to be cutting those off anyways once we get them. But just try to keep it in a fairly round shape as best as you can. Now this just takes a little practice. If you have a hard time rolling out and it kind of falls apart, you can just kind of put it back together as best as you can. The practice does make perfect with pastry making. So just, I'm going to just put down a little more. Keep working it around. As you can see, I'm just turning it, and that way you won't stick. And just It's kind of getting out of the round shape. And then feel the dough to make sure like it's even thickness. We want about 1/8 of an inch. And so I just kind of, you can kind of just feel with your hand if there's certain parts like in the center that get a little, are too thick. This is a really great pie dough for fruit pies. It's actually called a pâte brisée, if you want to know the technical name. Now, I'm going to just see if this is going to be large enough. You can use, there's a couple different types of pie plates. I usually use this Pyrex, or I like to use this. You could even use a metal one. And I just put it upside down, and you want an inch or so larger than the end. So as you can see, I think I'll just do it just a touch more. Make sure. That's good. So now what I do is I just loosely roll it around my rolling pin. And I always have a pastry brush so that if there's flour on the dough, I can just lightly brush it off. So if you have too much flour, it make your pastry tough, which is not what we want. And then just gently unroll it on top of your pie plate, like so. And then I'm just going to gently fit it in here. And you want to make sure you get it down into the corners, because you don't want it to shrink as it bakes. I'm just going to move this around. Now, if you have trouble the first time, that's really normal. And if it falls apart, just kind of put it back together. And if you have a little hole here, just take a little dough and just kind of press it like this. Maybe take a little water if you need. The more you do, the more you make pastry, the better you will get. So I'm just going to, looks good. Just take your index finger and just kind of make sure, just kind of hold the dough up and make sure you get it all the way around the inside rim. This is a really nice crust to use for a quiche or tarts, free-form tarts. It's very good. Okay, so then I'm just going to pat it around the outside. Now, some people just like to tuck the extra underneath like that. You could do that. Or you could take a knife or this and just kind of get rid of all the excess pastry. That. And then you could take the tines of a fork and just kind of press all the way around. You could just press it in here. Or you could take your fingers like this and just take your thumb and the other and just kind of, and get a flute edge all the way around. There's all different ways to make the outside crust the best part, I think. If you find like here it's a little thin, I could just take a little and just press it in there. It's quite forgiving, so just like that. Okay, now it's ready. I like to chill this for at least a half hour or so before I fill it and bake it off. So what I'm going to do is just cover it with plastic and put it back in the fridge. So there we have it, pie crusts. Until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyofbaking.com.